Welcome back to the Candy Lab for another delicious week of Maker Monday. What's your favorite candy? Do you like chocolate? Do you like lollipops? There's so many yummy kinds of candy out there, and I think they're all delicious. Do you know? Does candy sink? Does it float? I wonder which kind might sink or float. We're going to try that out as one of our challenges, and another challenge is going to be to dissolve the M on an M&M and see if we can make it float. It's going to be a lot of fun this week. Let's read some more of our book that we started last week, The Sugary Secrets Behind Candy. This week we're going to read about chocolate. Did you know that chocolate is the most popular candy in the world? I can believe that. I like chocolate. Let's read on. The Sugary Secrets Behind Candy by Ellie O'Ryan, illustrated by Rob McClurkin, and read with permission from Simon Spotlight. Chocolate is the most popular candy in the world thanks to the sweet skills of scientists. Like sugar, chocolate comes from a plant, the cacao bean. But the cacao beans that grow on a tree are nothing like the chocolate bars we eat. The beans are crammed into pods filled with sticky pulp, and they taste terrible. Cacao beans have a bitter chemical called tannin in them. To make yummy chocolate, the tannin has to go. After harvesting, cacao beans are placed in sweat boxes where a chemical reaction called fermentation happens. Tiny microbes or germs start to grow in the boxes. The microbes make oxygen and heat that helps remove some of the tannin. They also turn the cacao beans brown and bring out their chocolatey flavor. After several days, the fermented beans are dried in the sun. At the chocolate factory, dried cacao beans are sorted into different types. Each type of cacao bean has a slightly different flavor. One chocolate bar might use 12 different types to get the flavor just right. Next, they are roasted to kill any microbes. Nobody wants to eat germy chocolate. The heat from the roasting causes two kinds of chemical reactions. One helps remove even more tannin. The other reaction helps give chocolate its delicious flavor. After the beans are roasted, their shells are cracked open to get the good stuff, the cocoa nibs inside. There's still a long way to go before the cocoa nibs turn into chocolate. Next up, a machine grinds the nibs into chocolate liquor, a thick paste. Another machine uses so much force that it splits the chocolate liqueur into two parts. Half of it becomes dry powdered cocoa, the kind used to make hot chocolate. What's left is the creamy fat called cocoa butter. Some cocoa butter is used in soap, lotion, makeup, and medicine. The rest is added back to the chocolate liqueur to give it a rich texture. Cocoa butter melts just below body temperature. That's why chocolate melts in your mouth. At last, it's time to make the chocolate taste good. The most common ingredients added to chocolate are sugar, vanilla, milk, and soy lecithin. Chocolate makers often use the same ingredients, but each one follows a unique recipe. A chocolate recipe is like a chemical formula. It explains which ingredients to use, how much, and how to combine them. And more sugar, and the chocolate gets sweeter. Add more milk, and it becomes creamier. The mixture tastes great at this point, but the texture is gritty, like sand. To make the chocolate silky smooth, it is poured into a special machine called a conch, just like a seashell. The conch heats, grinds, and spins the chocolate to make it extra smooth and creamy. Rotating the chocolate in the conch also adds air to it through a process called aeration. There's one more step before the chocolate is ready, and it might be the most important part of all. After conching, the chocolate must be tempered. Tempering is a special word for how to cool melted chocolate. When chocolate cools, it starts to form crystals, just like sugar. Chocolate makers use the tempering process to control the size of the crystals. Slowly cooling the chocolate through several steps makes sure that all the crystals are the same size. When chocolate reaches the right temperature, it is smooth and shiny. It can be poured into molds and make anything from chocolate bars to chocolate bunnies. So for today's challenge, we want to find out what candy sinks and what candy floats. Because, some of you might like to eat your candy in the bathtub, but you're a little bit clumsy, and if you drop one, you don't want it to sink to the bottom. So you're looking for something that's going to float, right? I know that's pretty silly, but this is going to be fun. And you can use any candy that you want to try, so that's the fun thing. And if you don't have candy, stop at the library and pick some up. You can get your sheet that goes along with this week's challenge, and it will give you a whole list of questions and things to do. You're going to need whatever candies you have and a bowl of water. And now, one of the things on our sheet is to first think about what's inside. List the main ingredients inside these candies. So if you think about it, what's inside M&Ms? They're chocolate with a candy shell around them, right? And so you would think, will they sink or will they float? You can mark your prediction, sink or float, and then you can put your results after. I have some candies here that we can look at inside. We have Snickers and Twix and Milky Ways. You can really look at anything you want. Do you know what's inside of a Snickers? Well, there's some peanut inside of a Snickers. There's some caramel inside of a Snickers. And there's caramel and a shortbread cookie inside of a Twix. Milky Ways have some caramel and they have a nougat in there. They're pretty tasty too. So think about what's inside of our candies and whether or not you think they'll sink or float. Now I'm going to try some of these out and you can try them out also. I'll try one with you. So, and I also want to know, we have a mix. We have some candy that is sugary and not chocolate, like Smarties or Starburst. You can even try Skittles if you have Skittles and see if they work. So I'm going to try a Milky Way. And all you need to do is make your prediction and mark it down, and then we'll see. Do we think my Milky Way sank to the bottom? I'm going to try some of these out, mark my sheet, and I'll see you soon. So how successful were your predictions? Did you think that the fillings contributed to why a candy floated or why it sank? I think it had a lot to do with it. What did you notice about those candies as they sank? Did some sink faster than others? I thought it was really interesting that the Kit Kat looked like it was going to sink and then bounce back up. Do you know why some candies went straight to the bottom? Because they had heavy fillings like a caramel or a nut. And then something like a Kit Kat or a Three Musketeers, they're filled with lighter filling. A Kit Kat has a wafer inside that's got air pockets, or a Three Musketeers has a nougat that has lots of air pockets in it. So that helps float it. It was interesting to see that most of the candy sinks, doesn't it? So I guess you really don't have a lot of options when you're going to eat candy in the tub. You'll probably just have to wait and eat your candy outside of the tub, which is probably a better idea anyway. So our next activity is so much fun. We are going to see if we can float the M&M M off of our candy shell. To do this, we are going to put some candies in a bowl. I made mine look like a rainbow, but it depends on what colors you have. And then you need to take some room temperature water and pour it in there slowly. Now remember, when we tried to float M&Ms, our M&Ms didn't float, right? They sank. So our M&Ms will sit on the bottom, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with the candy shell. Bring it down a little bit. Okay. We're going to let these sit for a few minutes, and we're going to watch as the color dissolves off of them, and then let's watch and see what happens to the M. Now make sure when you put these in your bowl that you let the M face up. This way it can kind of come up. You can see now that most of the color has dissolved off of most of the M&Ms, and they're starting to look a little white. I can see chocolate in a few of them. And the blue, though, is still looking a little blue, isn't it? Let's keep our eye on those M's. So look here, I do have some M's that have come off and they're floating in the water. There's an M right there. And there's an M right there. How neat is that? Now, while the color on the M&M has dissolved, that's because they're water soluble, so they dissolve in the water. But the letter M in the candy coating shell is not, so that's why that has remained and is now floating up to the top of the surface. How neat are these colors? The bowl is so pretty right now. And it is so cool. I have a bunch of M's floating around in the top of it. I hope that your M's work for you and that you have fun with this and with the other activity. Now, I want to know, did you test some of that candy out too, just to make sure it was okay? What's your favorite candy? It's hard to tell, but I really do like M&Ms. Another M! It's like alphabet soup, just with M's. Next week, we have another fun activity using Skittles and water to make Skittles art. So bring your creativity because it's going to be so much fun. I can't wait to see you next week for another Maker Monday.